Hi, I'm Selina and this is the first devlog for WayBuilder, the deck building card game I'm currently developing in Godot. So, what is WayBuilder? Or rather, what should it be? WayBuilder is a deck building card game similar to Dominion, but with spatial components. You have a kind of game board displaying an island with two villages on opposing sides of this island. They are separated by a wilderness and it is your job to connect them with a path. Using your cards, you can change this landscape. You remove forests and place buildings, growing your village and working towards the completion of the path. What you would usually call action cards are villager cards in this game, and these are unlocked by placing their corresponding buildings. Beyond that, I also want to include a narrative component. This isn't in the game yet, but the idea is that when playing certain cards or interacting with certain map features, events would trigger, giving you choices that would lead to different rewards. By making the events the trigger dependent on the game state and previous choices, I hope for a narrative to emerge that accompanies the gameplay. So, how did this project start? Back in the end of March this year, I joined the GOTM Game Jam number 3. If you are a Godot game developer and haven't heard about GOTM yet, I recommend you check the platform out. They do monthly game jams on their platform, and for the third jam, the theme was Tiny World. I knew relatively quickly that I wanted a card game that would interact with a kind of tiny world. The first idea was to have the cards create land, which would expand the map. This recording is all I have of it now. The game was intended to be a lot about resource management. However, on the one hand, I was unsure how the theme would fit in, as you would start in a tiny world, but then the game was about expanding. On the other hand, while it seemed like a fun toy, there was no goal to the game. You simply could expand, manage resources and do that until you lost because you couldn't support your population or something like that. So halfway through the jam I changed directions. This next iteration of the concept was already the base for the current project. I did get the game working mechanically for the most part, but when testing it I noticed a huge problem. Resource and card manipulation, the main focus of the game, were very intransparent. The worst part was the shop that would open right after you got your money, but would thereby obscure the UI element displaying the money. In that shop you could then buy cards, however clicking on them gave no feedback. If you paid very close attention while playing, you might notice that the number next to the discard pile would increase after you bought a card, but that number again was obscured by the shop. At that point in the jam I had barely any time left, so I decided to quit and not enter anything. Still, I had no main project at the time and I wanted to see where I could get WayBuilder if I focused on it. So I restarted the project from the ground up. Rather than reuse the card game templates I had used for the jam version, I created my own card system from scratch so I could get the player feedback I wanted for my game. That has worked out nicely and I'm happy with how the card behaves so far. By now I also have a system of storing and resolving card effects, and even the map is already in place. The camera movement of the 3D world is still a bit rough, but it works for now. You can already remove forests and place buildings. Paths update in an auto-tiling fashion, and the game recognizes when the path is complete. There is still work to do to make the buildings have more interesting effects, but they can already unlock cards to buy in the shop, creating a kind of tech tree. Compared to the jam version, I'm also very happy with how the shop works, because you now have all the feedback you need to see what's going on. So, at least in terms of functionality, I'm close to a minimum viable product. I want to get a prototype in front of playtesters soon, and right now I'm debating whether or not I wait with that until I have the event system implemented. With the playtesting, I hope to find and correct any major flaws in the concept before I move on to creating a kind of vertical slice. Up until now, the game consists of prototype assets. I have at some point worked on a card design, but I might create a new one. I have done art tests for how I want the buildings and environment to look, and those turned out pretty decent. So once I have a solid core, I want to turn the game into something presentable and expand it with content from there. That's all for now about WayBuilder. I am developing this in my free time, so we'll see how fast progress is. But I do want to update you with another devlog as soon as I have something to show and find the time to create it. If you want more regular updates on the project, you can also follow me on Twitter. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this. Bye.